What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Thomas, bringing you another edition of the Thomas Take. I've been working overtime this week, putting out constant content for you guys to listen to. You guys in Buffalo, New York. Obviously, a lot to talk about the last week or so with the NFL draft. And now Doug Whaley is gone. Reports of Russ Brandon being in the general manager search for the next Buffalo Bills general manager, him being the sole voice of that search. I disagree with that. I disagree with that report, I should say. So I put some content out, put some recent episodes of the Thomas Take out for you guys to tune into. You can tune into those on the Thomas Take Sports Podcast YouTube channel, and also by liking the Thomas Take Sports Podcast Facebook page, you'll have access to any and all editions of the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. So another edition of the Thomas Take today. It is May 3rd already. Crazy. It was only my 25th birthday a few days ago, and this week has gone by pretty fast already. So a report out of One Bills Drive this morning read that Gary Barnidge, the now former Cleveland Brown tight end, is in Buffalo. He is at One Bills Drive visiting with the Buffalo Bills. And this is a very interesting move, to say the least, for the Buffalo Bills to host Gary Barnidge. And I really like the aggressiveness that this Bills staff is putting forth so far. Being that right now, I believe Sean McDermott is running the show at One Bills Drive, being that Whaley and company, Whaley and the scouts, were relieved of their duties on Sunday. So this is another Sean McDermott visit at One Bills Drive that I'm very excited about. I think that this will be a very interesting move. Hopefully the Buffalo Bills will be able to pull it off. And really, realistically, I was very curious as to why the Cleveland Browns cut Gary Barnidge, I should say. The reason why is because they had just drafted David Njoku out of the University of Miami, a player that I think is a very interesting prospect, a guy that definitely will be one of the better tight ends in the NFL in the coming years. But they had just drafted him, and I thought, Njoku and Barnidge, it's a very interesting duo there. But then they cut Gary Barnidge. So is it a cap-saving move? Yes. Cleveland reportedly saved around $3 million on the 2017 salary cap by cutting Gary Barnidge, but I just thought he did enough for that franchise to stick around a little bit longer. But I'm glad at least that Cleveland did cut him, and now that the Buffalo Bills are bringing him in on a visit. So very excited to see how this pans out. And really, Barnidge has ties to the Buffalo Bills organization. He's a guy that was in Carolina when Sean McDermott was there. So Sean McDermott probably saw some things as a defensive coordinator for that franchise that he liked in Gary Barnidge, that he matched up. Gary Barnidge might have caused some matchup problems for Sean McDermott while McDermott was the defensive coordinator at Carolina. So very exciting stuff to see the Buffalo Bills being aggressive in the negotiating room, trying to bring in as many players as they possibly can to make this team as best as it possibly can be. And I think that is a far cry from regimes of years past where they've just been content with what they have, even going as far as not necessarily replacing a player that has departed and just promoting from within. A big example of that is when the Buffalo Bills traded Kiko Alonso for LaShawn McCoy. They just promoted Preston Brown from within, and Preston Brown is not the same type of linebacker that Kiko Alonso is. So, there's been moves along the way. That's just one of them that pops in my mind. But there's been moves along the way where they have just promoted from within rather than replacing that actual player via free agency or via the draft. So this is one where they're actually adding to a position that they do need. And I really preached a message of the Bills drafting O.J. Howard, tried to put that out there as to why I think that would be a good move. And Rick Dennison's offense is a two tight end offense in most cases. Every stop that he's had, every pit stop he's had throughout his offensive coordinator, coaching career, even, with the quarterbacks coaching jobs that he's had, those offenses have been two tight end offenses. The offenses of the Texans, the offenses of the Ravens, and the offenses of the Denver Broncos. One common thread within that is Gary Kubiak. So I'd like to, I would anticipate we'll see a very similar offense to what Gary Kubiak has ran in years past, where the run game is essential and there's a 2 tight end scheme. So Clay, Barnidge, Watkins, Zay Jones, Andre Holmes, who it seems like everybody's sleeping on. Not many people know much about him, but I would be willing to tell you that Andre Holmes was one of the better additions that the Buffalo Bills made over the course of this offseason. He's a guy that's 6'5", 230, a big-bodied receiver that the Bills haven't had successfully in quite some time. James Hardy was the guy that they drafted in the second round, and I think everybody knows how that worked out. So, very interesting moves that the Buffalo Bills are making here, trying to bring in as many players as they possibly can to, as I said, make this team as best as they possibly can, because, they understand that it's been a long time since this team has made the playoffs. We're trying to get it right. We're also trying to get to a point where we'll be able to realize, hey, we can contend for this division. And right now they're not at that point in my eyes, far from that point, to be honest with you. But, moves like this where they're adding talent and adding pieces to the puzzle are definitely interesting to see. So hopefully they can come away with a contract agreement for Gary Barnidge. Hopefully this is a guy that they can bring in and say, hey, we have a vision. We know we're not where we need to be quite yet, but we think that if you come along, if you come aboard the ship that is the Buffalo Bills, then we will be better for it. And if someone would have told me, at one point that they could have Charles Clay and Gary Barnidge at tight end, I think that's the most depth that the Bills have had at the tight end position in quite some time. So it's very interesting to see them host a player like that when they already have a tight end in Charles Clay, but 2 is better than 1, and the NFL now is geared towards offensive systems that have 2 tight ends. We saw that in New England in the days of Rob Gronkowski and Aaron Hernandez. We've seen that in New England with Rob Gronkowski and Martellus Bennett. New England has successfully bridged the gap of putting in that 2 tight end system in the offensive playbook for this day and age's NFL. But the Buffalo Bills have not tried this method yet, and I think they need to, being that they're a run-based team, being that they have a quarterback that is on the short side, a guy that has trouble seeing over the middle of the field. They need as many big play targets as they possibly can on, what they already have, considering what they already have in Andre Holmes, and then the possibility of bringing in Gary Barnidge. Now you have multiple targets that are big-bodied receivers. And Zay Jones is no slouch. He's 6'2", almost 6'3". So it'll be very interesting to see how these bigger players play a big factor, or whether they play a big factor, I should say, in the 2017 season for the Buffalo Bills. One thing that we have to keep in mind is the schedule is not conducive to to thinking playoffs. In my eyes, that schedule is probably one of the worst that's been ever put together. But 2018, there's a lot to look forward to. You got a GM coming in that knows that he's got 2 first-round picks in 2018. He's got some ammunition to work with heading into the 2018 NFL Draft. So it'll be very interesting to see not only how the Chiefs do and where that 2018 first-round selection that the Buffalo Bills received, where will it be on the pick order, but essentially the fact that the Bills will have 2 first-round grade players in their building next year. I think that's going to be huge, and I'm really hoping that they're both on the defensive side of the ball. I want to see this defense get built up to as best a defense as they could possibly get in that 4-3 that Sean McDermott runs, and build a bully, in the words of the now former head coach Rex Ryan. So, we haven't really had good luck the last few years. We've had some really bad injuries. Every team has injuries, but we were being assembled by a GM that wasn't willing to put forth the depth that an NFL team needs in this day and age. And when we would have these injuries, they would hurt us more than they would any other team, because we didn't have the guys in place to come in this system and take over in the event of an injury. I think the Bills are aware of that, and I think that they have a coach now that knows what they need, a coach that knows what he needs to fit the right players in the right scheme. And you would have thought that maybe this would have been possible with Rex Ryan. This meaning, having a coach call the shots rather than a defensive coordinator turned head coach, first-time head coach. It would have been completely plausible for me to say that, hey, Rex would have this opportunity, being that he is of his father's cloth. He's got the Ryan name behind him. He has playoff victories behind him. He has success versus New England behind him in certain instances. The win-loss record does not look good, but he's been known to give the Patriots trouble on certain occasions. You would think that maybe they would have put him in charge of the team, but they did not. And they didn't because they clearly didn't want to, and because of the fact that Rex Ryan was changing the fabric of their defense when they should have realistically never hired him. If they already knew that Rex was going to come in and change it from a 4-3 to a 3-4, which they did, why fire that guy for that very reason only 2 years later? It just didn't make sense. The hire was just a PR move, and it backfired. And I think that right now they have a guy that has come in and taken control and kind of seized his moment as far as being a first-time NFL head coach, saying to himself, hey, we're switching back to the 4-3. We have some of the right personnel, but I need to bring in the right personnel to make it better. And guys like Tre'Davious White are a damn good start. Guys like Deion Dawkins, even on the other side of the ball at tackle, knowing that we need a tackle, knowing that there's players out there that we could add on to this defense. And realistically, Micah Hyde was another addition that I really liked. Jordan Poyer, there's things about him that I like in terms of his tackling ability. So they went after guys that can tackle. They went after guys that can get after it. And that's what Sean McDermott's scheme needs in order to be successful. So I am excited. 2017, I don't have the highest expectations. But as always, I'm very excited for the football season. I'm very excited for the fantasy football season, and I'm going to be doing a ton of fantasy football coverage on the Thomas Take Sports podcast in 2017 for the 2017 season. And I posted a Facebook post yesterday that stated that I will not draft Marshawn Lynch, Jamal Charles, or Adrian Peterson, the three veteran running backs. Not gonna do it unless it's at the right value, but even in the back of my mind is telling me no. Everything is telling me no to not draft those guys, mainly because Lynch took that year off. Who knows what he's gonna look like when he comes back. Jamal Charles is injury prone, and he is playing second fiddle to a timeshare, or third fiddle, I should say, in a timeshare. And the Adrian Peterson fit with the New Orleans Saints, I thought was a very weird fit. I don't know how he's going to be used in that offense. They have Mark Ingram, and I don't know if it helps Adrian Peterson's chances at ever winning a Super Bowl. So I was a little bit perplexed when Adrian went to the New Orleans Saints, being that they're kind of in a transition mode. Maybe he wanted to play with Drew Brees. Maybe he wanted to continue to play in a dome. I'm not sure, but those three running backs I'm not high on drafting. I'm going to let you guys know who I am high on drafting in the coming months, heading closer as we get closer to the fantasy football season. So very excited to see whether the Bills bring in Gary Barnidge. I really hope they do. I think it would add another dimension to that offense, and hopefully it would be a dimension to that offense that quarterback Tyrod Taylor can take advantage of. I think that there were moments last year where he could have done a little bit better throwing the ball, even though the receivers were hurt. There are moments where he was missing receivers left and right, and we cannot afford to have that happen in 2017. So that was the Thomas Take, guys. Take care. And thank you so much for tuning in and supporting me. Thank you.